The wind howled outside the cabin, a fierce Colorado blizzard clawing at the windows, but inside, my heart was the storm. I stood frozen, staring at Marcus, my brother's best friend, as he tossed another log into the fireplace, his silhouette glowing against the flames. How had a simple vacation turned into this? A moment where every glance felt like a confession I wasn't ready to make. My name is Javier Morales, 24, a graphic designer from Denver with a habit of overthinking everything. Growing up in a loud, sprawling family, I learned early to keep my feelings tucked away, especially the ones that didn't fit the mold of our traditional Latino household. My older brother, Diego, was the golden child, athletic, charming, and effortlessly straight. His best friend, Marcus Jackson, 26, had been a fixture in our lives since high school. Marcus was everything I wasn't. Confident, outspoken, with a laugh that could fill a room and a presence that made you feel seen. A black man with a knack for storytelling, he worked as a social worker, always carrying the weight of others' struggles with a quiet strength. I'd always admired him from a distance, but this trip was different. This trip was dangerous. It was Diego's idea, a week-long getaway to a cabin in the Rockies, a chance to unplug after a brutal year. He'd invited Marcus and me, along with a few of his college buddies, but at the last minute, everyone else bailed. A storm was rolling in, and Diego, ever the planner, decided to stay back in Denver to avoid getting snowed in. "You and Marcus go," he'd said, tossing me the keys. "It'll be good for you to get out of your head." I should have known then that fate had other plans. The drive up was quiet, the kind of quiet that hums with unspoken words. Marcus hummed along to an old R&B playlist, his deep voice weaving through the melodies, while I stared out the window, pretending the snow-dusted pines held all my attention. But every time he glanced my way, my pulse spiked. I'd spent years convincing myself my feelings for him were just a crush, a fleeting thing I could bury. But now, alone in a car with him for hours, those feelings clawed their way to the surface. We reached the cabin just as the storm hit, a small wooden haven tucked between towering evergreens. The air inside smelled of cedar and possibility. Marcus dropped his bag and grinned, his eyes catching the firelight. "This place is perfect, Javi. You ready for a week of nothing but good vibes?" I nodded, but my stomach twisted. Good vibes? I was barely holding it together. That first night, we cooked a simple dinner, chili from a can, because neither of us was a chef. We sat on the floor by the fireplace, the warmth wrapping around us like a shared secret. Marcus talked about his work, about the kids he helped at the community center, his voice steady but heavy. "Sometimes I wonder if I'm doing enough," he said, staring into the flames. Like, am I really making a difference, or am I just pretending? I wanted to tell him he was enough, more than enough. Instead, I said, "You're the most real person I know." His eyes met mine, and for a moment the world stopped. Then he laughed, breaking the tension. "You're too nice, Javi. Always have been." The next day, the storm worsened, trapping us inside. We played cards, swapped stories, and laughed until my sides ached. But every brush of his hand against mine, every shared glance, felt like a spark in a powder keg. I caught myself watching him. How his brow furrowed when he lost at poker. How his smile softened when he talked about his dreams. I was falling, and I didn't know how to stop. By the third night, the cabin felt smaller, the air thicker. We were sprawled on the couch, a bottle of whiskey between us, the fire casting shadows that danced across the walls. Marcus leaned back, his arm brushing mine, and asked, "You ever feel like you're hiding something from the world, Javi? Like there's a part of you nobody gets to see?" My throat tightened. I wanted to tell him everything. How I'd known I was gay since I was 15, how I'd never told my family, how being around him made me feel alive and terrified all at once. But fear held me back. What if he didn't feel the same? What if I ruined everything? I hide stuff all the time, I said finally, my voice barely above a whisper. It's easier that way. He turned to me, his gaze piercing. You don't have to hide with me. My heart pounded. The room felt too warm, too close. I stood, muttering something about needing air, and stepped onto the porch. The cold bit at my skin, but it couldn't drown out the truth screaming inside me. Marcus followed, his footsteps soft on the wooden floor. Javi, talk to me, he said, his voice gentle but firm. What's going on? I turned, the snow swirling around us, and the words spilled out before I could stop them. I'm not who you think I am, Marcus. I'm gay, and I've been in love with you for years. The silence that followed was deafening. His eyes widened, and for a moment, I thought I'd lost him. Then he stepped closer, his breath visible in the frigid air. Javi, he said, his voice low. You're not the only one who's been hiding. Time slowed, the snowflakes suspended in the air like stars frozen in orbit. Marcus's words hung between us, heavy with meaning I wasn't sure I could trust. Had he just said what I thought he said? Or was my heart playing tricks, twisting hope into something impossible? I stood there, shivering on the porch, my confession still raw in the air. Marcus's eyes, dark and searching, held mine with an intensity that made my chest ache. What do you mean? I asked, my voice trembling, not from the cold but from the weight of possibility. He took a step closer, his boots crunching in the snow. I've been hiding too, Javi. I felt something for you, for a long time, but I didn't know how to say it, or if I even should. His voice cracked and I saw it, the vulnerability he so rarely showed, the fear that mirrored my own. My mind raced. Marcus, the guy who'd always seemed so sure of himself, was standing here, admitting he felt something for me? I wanted to laugh, cry, run. Anything to break the tension coiling inside me. But I stayed rooted, afraid to move and shatter this fragile moment. Why didn't you say anything? I asked. He let out a shaky laugh, rubbing the back of his neck. Same reason as you, probably. Fear. Diego. The fact that I didn't even know if you swung that way. He paused, his gaze dropping to the ground. I've spent my whole life being the strong one, Javi. For my family, my clients, everyone. I didn't know how to let myself want something just for me. The honesty in his voice cracked something open inside me. I stepped closer, close enough to feel the warmth radiating from him despite the freezing air. So what do we do now? I whispered. He looked up, and the smile that spread across his face was like sunlight breaking through clouds. We figure it out. Together. We went back inside, the cabin's warmth enveloping us. The fire had died down, but the embers still glowed, casting a soft light over the room. We sat on the couch, closer than before, our knees brushing. The silence wasn't heavy anymore. It was alive, full of possibility. Marcus reached for my hand, his fingers tentative at first, then firm, grounding me in a way I hadn't realized I needed. Tell me about it, he said softly. What it's been like for you. Hiding. I swallowed hard, the words tumbling out like a dam breaking. I told him about the years of silence, the fear of disappointing my family, the nights spent wondering if I'd ever be brave enough to live my truth. I told him about the crush I'd nursed since I was 19, watching him and Diego laugh together, wishing I could be part of his world in a different way. He listened, really listened, his thumb tracing small circles on my hand. When I finished, he was quiet for a moment. Then he said, I came out to my mom when I was 22. She didn't take it well at first. Said it was a phase that I just needed to find the right girl. It hurt, but I kept going, kept being me. I didn't tell Diego because, well, I didn't want to risk losing him. Or you. The thought of Marcus carrying that weight alone made my heart ache. You don't have to carry it alone anymore, I said. squeezing his hand. That night, we talked until the fire was just ashes, sharing pieces of ourselves we'd kept hidden for too long. It wasn't all heavy. There were moments of laughter, of teasing, of the easy banter we'd always had. But now it was laced with something deeper, something real. When we finally went to bed, I lay awake in my room, staring at the ceiling, my heart pounding with a mix of fear and exhilaration. For the first time, I felt seen. The next morning, the storm had calmed, leaving a blanket of fresh snow outside. Marcus suggested a hike, and we bundled up, stepping into a world that felt new. The forest was silent, the kind of quiet that makes you feel like the only two people alive. We walked side by side, our breath visible in the crisp air, and when he reached for my hand, I didn't pull away. The trail led us to a frozen lake, its surface glinting under the weak winter sun. Marcus stopped, turning to face me. "Javi," he said, his voice steady. "I don't know what this is yet, but I know I don't want it to end when we leave this place." My breath caught. "Me neither," I said, and before I could overthink it, I leaned in and kissed him. It was soft at first, tentative, then deeper, like we were pouring everything we'd held back into that single moment. The world fell away, the cold, the snow, the fear. All that mattered was him. But even as we stood there, wrapped in each other, a shadow lingered in my mind. Diego, my family, the life waiting for us back in Denver. This cabin was a bubble, a safe haven where we could be ourselves. What would happen when we stepped back into the real world? The days in the cabin blurred into a rhythm of stolen glances and quiet confessions. Marcus and I fell into an unspoken routine. Mornings spent cooking breakfast together, afternoons exploring the snowy trails, evenings by the fire, our conversations weaving a fragile bridge between our pasts and this new, uncharted present. But with every touch, every shared laugh, the weight of the outside world pressed closer, a reminder that this couldn't last forever. On the fifth day, we ventured deeper into the forest, the snow crunching under our boots. Marcus was ahead, his laughter echoing as he tossed a snowball at me. I dodged, grinning, and lobbed one back, catching him square in the chest. He tackled me into a snowbank, and we collapsed in a heap, breathless and laughing. For a moment, lying there with his face inches from mine, I forgot about everything else. Diego, my family, the life I'd been too afraid to claim. "Your trouble, Javi?" he said, his voice warm, his eyes crinkling at the corners. "Me? You're the one starting snowball fights." I shot back, but my heart wasn't in the teasing. It was too busy memorizing the way he looked at me, like I was someone worth seeing. We lay there a little longer, the cold seeping through our jackets, but neither of us moved. "What happens when we go back?" I asked, the question slipping out before I could stop it. Marcus's smile faded, and he sat up, brushing snow from his gloves. "I've been asking myself that too," he admitted. "Diego's my best friend. He's like family, but this," he gestured between us. "This is real, Javi. I don't want to lose it." I sat up, my stomach nodding. "Diego doesn't even know I'm gay. I've never told him. What if he—" I stopped, the words too heavy to finish. "What if he hates me? What if he hates us?" Marcus reached for my hand, his grip steady. "We'll figure it out. Whatever happens, I'm in this with you." His words were a lifeline, but they couldn't erase the fear gnawing at me. That night, as we sat by the fire, I couldn't shake the image of Diego's face, the way he'd always looked at Marcus like a brother. Would he understand, or would this tear everything apart? The next morning, the storm returned, fiercer than before. The power flickered, then died, leaving us in a dim world of candlelight and shadows. We huddled by the fire, wrapped in blankets, and Marcus pulled out an old guitar he'd found in the cabin's closet. His fingers strummed a soft melody, and he sang, his voice low and soulful, filling the room with warmth. I watched him, my chest tight with an emotion I couldn't name. Love, yes, but also gratitude, fear, hope. When he finished, he set the guitar down and looked at me. "I've never felt this way before," he said quietly. "Not with anyone. You make me want to be brave, Javi." I leaned in, kissing him, and for a moment, the storm outside didn't exist. But as we pulled apart, my phone buzzed, a rare moment of signal cutting through the storm. It was a text from Diego. "You guys okay up there? Storm looks bad. Coming up tomorrow if roads clear." Panic surged through me. Tomorrow, Diego would be here and everything would change. Marcus saw my face and took the phone, reading the message. His jaw tightened, but he didn't let go of my hand. "We'll tell him together," he said. "No hiding." I nodded, but doubt clawed at me. That night, I barely slept, my mind racing with worst-case scenarios. What if Diego rejected me? What if he blamed Marcus? What if this beautiful thing we'd found shattered under the weight of reality? The next morning, the storm eased, and the roads were clear enough for Diego to make the drive. Marcus and I cleaned the cabin, our movements mechanical, the air thick with unspoken tension. When Diego's car pulled up, my heart was in my throat. He stepped out, his familiar grin lighting up his face, oblivious to the storm brewing inside me. "Yo, you two survived the apocalypse?" he called, trudging through the snow. He hugged Marcus, then me, his arm lingering around my shoulders. "Missed you, little bro." We sat around the kitchen table, the fire crackling in the background. Diego talked about work, about the storm, about everything except the truth hanging between us. I glanced at Marcus, and he gave me a small nod, his eyes steady. It was now or never. "Diego," I said, my voice shaking, "there's something I need to tell you." Diego's smile faltered, his eyes narrowing as he leaned back in his chair. "What's up, Javi? You look like you're about to confess to a crime." His tone was light, but there was an edge to it, a wariness that made my stomach churn. I glanced at Marcus, his presence beside me the only thing keeping me grounded. His hand rested on the table, close enough to mine that I could feel its warmth. I took a deep breath, the words I'd rehearsed 100 times in my head, suddenly feeling inadequate. "I'm gay," I said, the words spilling out like a flood. "I've known for years, but I never told you. I was scared you wouldn't get it." The room went still. Diego's face was unreadable, his eyes flicking between me and Marcus. The silence stretched, each second a knife twisting in my chest. Finally, he leaned forward, his voice low. "Why didn't you tell me sooner, Javi? I'm your brother." "I didn't know how," I admitted, my voice barely above a whisper. "I didn't want to disappoint you, or Mom and Dad. I didn't want to lose you." Diego's jaw tightened, and he ran a hand over his face. "You think I'd stop loving you because of who you are? That's not how family works, man." He paused, his eyes softening. "But there's more, isn't there? You and Marcus, something's going on." Marcus shifted, his voice steady but cautious. "Yeah, Diego, there is. Javi and we've got something real here. We didn't plan it, but it happened. And we want to be honest with you." Diego's gaze locked on Marcus, and for a moment, I thought he might explode. But then he stood, pacing the small kitchen, his hands on his hips. "You're telling me my best friend and my little brother are what? Together? How long has this been going on?" "Just this trip," I said quickly. "It's new, but it's real." He stopped pacing, his eyes searching mine. "You're serious about this? Both of you?" Marcus nodded. "I've never been more serious about anything, Diego. I care about Javi. A lot." Diego sank back into his chair, his shoulders slumping. "This is a lot, man. I need a minute." He looked at me, his expression a mix of hurt and confusion. I wish you'd trusted me sooner, Javi. I'm not saying I get it all right now, but I'm not going anywhere. You're my brother. Tears stung my eyes, but I blinked them back. I'm sorry I didn't tell you. I was scared. He reached across the table, squeezing my shoulder. I know, but don't do that again, okay? No more hiding. The rest of the day was strange, a mix of relief and tension. Diego didn't say much, but he didn't pull away either. He helped us pack, made jokes about the storm, even challenged Marcus to a rematch at cards. But I could see the wheels turning in his head, processing, adjusting. Marcus and I kept our distance, not wanting to push him, but every glance we shared felt like a promise. That night, as we sat around the fire, Diego broke the silence. You two, you're good for each other, he said, his voice gruff. I can see it. Just don't hurt him, Marcus, or I'll kill you. Marcus laughed, the sound easing the tension. Noted, man. I'm not planning on it. When Diego left the next morning, he hugged me tighter than usual. Love you, Javi, he said. Always will. And then, to Marcus, take care of him. As his car disappeared down the snowy road, I felt a weight lift, but a new one settled in its place. The cabin had been our sanctuary, a place where we could be ourselves without judgment. Now, we were heading back to Denver, to a world that wouldn't be so forgiving. The drive home was quiet, but not the heavy kind. Marcus reached for my hand, his fingers lacing with mine. You okay? He asked. I think so, I said. You? He smiled, his eyes warm. Better than ever. But as the city skyline came into view, my stomach twisted. My parents, my job, the life I'd built around keeping secrets. Could I really step into this new version of myself? And what would it cost? Back in Denver, the world felt sharper, louder, like stepping out of a dream into harsh daylight. Marcus and I tried to hold onto the magic of the cabin, stealing moments together. A coffee date in a quiet cafe, a late-night walk through the park, but the weight of reality pressed in. My parents were still in the dark, and every time I thought about telling them, my chest tightened with fear. One evening, Marcus came over to my apartment, his presence filling the small space with warmth. We cooked dinner together, a clumsy attempt at tacos that ended with us laughing over spilled salsa. As we sat on my couch, his arm around me, he said, We can't keep hiding forever, Javi. You know that, right? I nodded, but the thought of facing my parents, my traditional religious parents, made my stomach churn. I know, I said, but what if they don't accept me? What if they don't accept us? He pulled me closer, his voice steady. Then we deal with it, together. But you deserve to live your truth, Javi. And I'm not going anywhere. The next day, I called my mom and asked if I could come over for dinner. Marcus offered to come with me, but I needed to do this alone first. When I walked into my parents' house, the familiar smell of arroz con pollo hit me, a reminder of every family dinner, every moment I'd spent trying to fit their mold. We sat around the dining table, my parents chatting about work and church, oblivious to the storm inside me. Finally, I couldn't hold it in anymore. Mom, Dad, I said, my voice shaking, I need to tell you something. I'm gay, and I'm with someone. His name is Marcus. My mom's fork froze midair. My dad's face hardened, his eyes narrowing. The silence was suffocating. Then my mom spoke, her voice trembling. Javier, how could you not tell us? All these years. I was scared, I said, tears spilling over. I didn't want to lose you. My dad stood, his chair scraping against the floor. This isn't what we raised you to be, he said, his voice low and sharp. You need to think about what this means for our family. I left their house feeling like I'd been gutted, but Marcus was waiting for me outside. He didn't say anything, just pulled me into his arms and held me until the sobs stopped. "It's gonna take time," he said. "But you did the hard part. You were brave." The weeks that followed were a blur of tension and small victories. My mom called, her voice softer, asking questions, trying to understand. My dad stayed silent, but Diego stepped up, talking to them, bridging the gap I couldn't. Marcus and I kept building our life together. Movie nights, hikes, quiet moments that felt like home. One day, I got a text from my mom. "Can Marcus come to dinner next week?" It wasn't acceptance, not yet, but it was a start. When I showed Marcus, he grinned, pulling me into a kiss. "Told you we'd figure it out," he said. The cabin changed me. It gave me Marcus, gave me courage, gave me a glimpse of the life I could have if I stopped hiding. It wasn't easy. There were still fights, silences, moments of doubt. But every time I looked at Marcus, I knew it was worth it. The love we found in that snowy haven wasn't just a moment. It was a promise, one we'd keep fighting for, together.